you miss what happened in week 2 here of the PMWL East? Well, don't worry, because this happy-go-lucky ginger scamp has got you covered. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Kaelaris, your host of PMWL East, and we're going to talk about exactly what went down, not only in our Super Weekend during week 2, but what happened in the days leading up to it as well. So, first things first, let's see how all of the teams were able to do when coming into the first couple of days to try and qualify into that Super Weekend. As always, can you imagine, Bigotron Red Aliens was able to top the boards leading into our second Super Weekend with 97 points. A few surprises, though, that we actually had coming in was that Team Secret was able to significantly step up their performance from week 1 leading into week 2. And you can see that reflected with their second place finish at 95 points. Moving down a little bit further, Valdis the Murder taking themselves a third place spot, extremely respectable indeed. And our previous lobby leaders when it came to Super Week 1 in our RQ Athena took themselves a 4th place. So that is our top 10 as it did stand. Let's take a little cheeky look down further as well and see how our 11th through 20th did here. Unfortunately for our bottom 4 teams, they were unable to qualify for our second Super Weekend. And for teams like Gank, who got themselves 3 chicken dinners in that first Super Weekend, it's a little bit unfortunate that they have to miss out on this one. We will see later on how they fared in the overall Super Weekend standings to see how they unfortunately did drop throughout that time due to not being able to play. Now, let's move on into our Super Weekend. And this is the culmination of both of our Super Weekends in terms of points. So, surprise, surprise, it's Bigotron Red Aliens that get themselves the #1 spot after these 2 Super Weekends. Not only that, but they got themselves 4 chicken dinners on the board with 367 points, knocking our RQ Athena off of that top spot. Now, when you look at 4 chicken dinners, that's quite impressive, right? Megastars in 4th place was also able to accrue 4 chicken dinners very, very impressively and move themselves up to a decent 4th place. And Box Gaming is currently in 3rd so far. So all of these teams vying for the top spot here for our Super Weekends, doing very, very well for themselves. GXR Celts getting themselves a 5th place, consistently consistent. That's what we always say about them. And you can see that also shown in that 300-point mark. Not many teams fall in that 300-point club, but GXR Celts managed to squeeze their way in. 2 risers actually during this Super Weekend were Team Secret and TSM Entity that found themselves in a great spot in that top 10. They did not have the easiest time in week 1 of the PMWL East, and now we're really seeing them come into their own, showing what they can do and doing their name justice. There's a lot of fans out there who are expecting them to do well, and indeed they did in this second Super Weekend. Now moving on down through our 11th through 20th as a whole. Unfortunately for Morph Team and Nova Godlike, they've not been able to qualify for either of our Super Weekends, so they've not been able to play any of the games there, as you can see reflected in that 0 points that they have gained so far. And 2 teams that did not qualify into our second Super Weekend were No Chance Team and Gank. Gank came into our second Super Weekend, technically in 6th place. However, fell all the way down to 15th as all of the teams were looking for a big push. Level Up and Freestyle, it was their first Super Weekend, and they did pretty darn well for themselves. They are just looking now for a good opportunity to step into that 3rd Super Weekend, try and get themselves there, a few more points, and they may qualify on through into that league final. Now, let's focus in, because there was one name that was very prevalent in all of those standings, and it was Bigotron Red Aliens. They have been blasting out of control, and who can blame them? They're the kings. They're the reigning champions of the world, and so far, so good for them. In our first Super Weekend and our first week in general, the Twins were able to do a lot of work for the team, despite this team being the complete package. However, coming into our second Super Weekend, I think Ryzen was able to steal just a little bit of that spotlight for the team. But you can see it in the damage, in how much they've been able to do here throughout the tournament so far. They've been an absolute focal point, and kudos to them for being able to take the top spot so far here for PMWL East. Will they keep it up? Will they win the league? Will they win the entire grand finals towards the end? That remains to be seen. However, they have a damn good shot at it. So let's move on to our top 10 killers when it comes to the PMWL East as well. As we take a little bit look downwards on this table, we can see that names like Yuhai, Gil, Martin still very prevalent in here and doing a lot of good work for their teams. Yuhai especially for a Team Secret, being able to get himself into that top 10 after the big performances that we've seen from Team Secret so far is extremely respectable, and I'm expecting to see even more work put in week 3 from Team Secret and Yuhai. And that is our bottom 6. We can actually focus in a little bit closer on our top 4 here, when it looks like G9, Luxi, Ryzen, and Beery. These 4 names, even I should say, representing 2 of the big teams in the league so far. RRQ, the Chasers, trying to push themselves up and doing very, very well for themselves. G9, always an absolute standout from him. Luxi and Ryzen here from BTR. And Ryzen, I previously mentioned it, and I want to kind of focus in on this a bit more as well, because Ryzen had absolutely MVP performances. Didn't quite clutch the MVP performance, mind you, but some of his fights, some of his tactics, some of his abilities throughout some of these in 1v2, 1v3 situations were extremely, extremely impressive. So it was cool to see how Ryzen was able to play things out. The complete package of Bigotron Red Aliens looking damn good. But now we can talk about our MVP here of week 2. And of course, it is Jonathan from TSM Entity. Man, the guy, a lot of praise is given to Jonathan, not only from the fans around the world, but also his peers, also the other players in the tournament, be it on his team or other teams. Jonathan, throughout Super Weekend Week 2, was able to get himself clutch victories, not only in some outnumbered situations, but also cast your mind back to Yasnaya Fields, where he was able to snake it and make it. Found himself some great kills towards the end and clutched out an almost impossible situation for a lot of other players, a lot of other teams, but Jonathan was able to make it work. So congratulations, Jonathan. You are our Week 2 MVP. Will he be going for that one at the very end of the season? That remains to be seen, but he's sure a good name to try and bag it. Well, that does it, ladies and gentlemen. A huge thank you for joining me here for Week 2's recap. Let's take a look back at everything that happened in Week 2, because we've got some highlights for you.